Welcome to the Northfield Selectboard meeting. It's Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 we're opening the meeting at 6 o'clock on the dot. And there's a few things going on and we're gonna try and keep this short. But we have a few appointments, so we're gonna start rolling with those. First up, Colleen Letourneau from the Senior Center. Do you wanna introduce everyone and discuss why you're here in front of the select board tonight?
So my Council on Aging Board chair is Deb Lanou, and the co-chair is Jim Whitcomb. And we're here to review with you what the CPC project that we have pending your approval to go to the town meeting is on buying a shed, having it constructed out back against the town garage. And in that shed we would like to also get a grill, propane grill, and get some new lawn games and be able to house our own umbrellas and stands. And so there's a lot of equipment that has been kind of shuffled about, and it's encroaching other people's domain, and we need it out, and we want it out. We want it protected and in a nice new shed, and so that's what we're proposing. And
close to the action too, I would imagine.
To the pavilion, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
That would be easier. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does the select board have questions? Is there anything in particular that you want to call out? I think my initial question, just to get the ball rolling, was it's in between the current pavilion and the current shed, right?
It's actually attached.
Yeah. So
we reviewed this project with Steve Roberto, who you know is an incredible contractor, and he helped us with the actual specs of the drawing, the actual measurements and what it would look like. And he made a few suggestions, so there's a couple little things that are changed, but it shouldn't change any price points, and it should, if anything, make it more aesthetically pleasing and solid. Mm-hmm. So we're very thankful to Steve. Yeah.
I mean, here's a picture of the existing one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be attached to this?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll end up with both and that much more storage?
If you go to the diagram, you'll be able to see, the current shed is actually for like maintenance, like the lawnmowers and things like that. So we have quite a few items in there that are getting not used because we can't reach them. And also they don't belong there. We need their own space. So maintenance and lawn care and all that can have their own easy access as it was originally designed for them.
Alex, did you have questions before I keep going?
No, it's pretty straightforward. This isn't really like a big deal or like a big something. I think it's actually long overdue. And a growing organization needs to have space to put their belongings. Right. Especially if you want to start planning events to continue to grow. Right. And so I just want to make sure, just from a numbers perspective, we have a total project cost of $5,703. Mm-hmm. And then we're requesting CPA funding in the amount of $2,825. I just want to make sure I'm reading that right.
That would be right.
Okay. Yeah. Probably should have happened a while back, but I'm glad to see this is finally getting done. Do we have an estimated time of when this project will be completed?
If we go with Lamore, who is the person that we were thinking would build right on site, if we go with Lamore, he's on vacation in Florida, so we need him to come back. Right. And we have other plans. We have a plan, B, C, and D for local contractors calling over to the tech schools, see if they would like it'd be a perfect little project for them. One thing I definitely want to point out is we wanted to meld beautifully in with the current garage, so it's all the same siding and roof color, and I want to put window boxes up and then put more plantings around it. We have volunteers ready to remove the irises and the bulb plants that are there right now that our shed would sit on top of. We've already got volunteers to help landscape, and it'll be a nice project for a lot of people. And I envision many events that would be kind of like a a side room for us to have concerts and speaking engagements, and we might even buy new furnishings out there, but that's not part of this. That's something else we'll do with our monies.
Yeah.
But this is just the shed and the barbecue, and so we can have more congregate meals. We can have the Happy Little Feet kids come in and play some of the new lawn game things we want to get going. We already have a plan to fix up the horseshoe pit and get new horseshoes, and yeah, want to make it look really like, wow, that's a nice place, let's go there, you know. So
That's great.
In terms of the timeline, it was my understanding that the CPC money, if it's approved at town meeting, is available right after that it doesn't have to wait till like the end of a fiscal year.
It's not a
So
raise and appropriate.
that, so that can play into when we can get started on that.
Okay.
Bernie, did you have questions or comments?
Just wanted to reiterate, I know, and that anybody is welcome at any of these senior center events too.
Mhm.
I mean, I know some of them are weekdays, but the whole community, regardless of age, is always invited to these events.
Oh, yeah.
Just thought I'd mention that because they love it. Like I said, I went to one of the Happy Feet things, and that was a blast.
yeah.
The kids love it.
Yeah.
So just want the people to know that they're all invited anytime we have something there.
Yes.
That's
Thank you for
great.
saying that.
Yeah. Well, we're all aging, so regardless of our age, we're all aging. And I know you look at that as a broad spectrum, so
Yeah.
that's enlightening. Alex, did you have a motion?
I did. So I was
Great.
just side chattering with Andrea for a second.
That's what
That
I
we're not
thought.
voting to approve this project. We're voting in support of the project. We're their entity and their business is to approve the project and do that on their end.
Yep.
So there's a difference, but having the select board's endorsement does carry weight with it. So that is
Right.
important to put out there. And speaking of which, I do have a motion prepared
Thank you.
for such occasion.
Excellent.
So at this time, I'll make a motion to vote in support of the Town of Northfield Senior Center project for the Senior Center shed and grill.
Motion and
Second.
second. Any discussion on the motion? Just one quick question. Did we run it by the highway superintendent too?
Well, I ran it by Jim Hawkins, who said we don't need any permits.
Okay.
It's too small of a template to
Right.
require all that extra things.
Right.
I did not run it by the highway. I wasn't aware.
I emailed him if he had
Oh, okay,
any
thank you.
concerns,
Okay.
but he didn't respond. I mean, he would have told me, I think, if he had
Okay.
concerns.
Electricity, will there be electrical in it or no?
No.
No, okay,
Okay.
that's all I needed.
Alrighty. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There,
Thank you for your
you.
support.
Cool.
It was nice to see you all.
Nice to
Jim, you
see
need to
you.
come more often. That's really
And look,
not
this
very
is
painful.
this is the original Stanley Wiki. If you wanted to see,
Unfortunately,
that's
very
the
seldom
project.
have anything
Oh,
to
building,
bring.
Yeah, I found it.
Oh yeah, bring it up here
Behind
so
my
we
safe
can.
in my office.
Here, we'll put it on camera
Thank you very
if we
much.
can.
Appreciate it.
2010.
That's
There you go.
And Steve Roberto is in here. He was the contractor of this whole thing. We had the tech school with the Kiwanis Club. So the headline, is seniors think outside the box. And yes, we do.
That's
Here,
right.
here.
Oh, you ran away.
That's right.
Are you gonna put that up downstairs somewhere so people
I
can see it?
will. I
Yeah,
will.
that'd be fun.
I know. I just unearthed it. I had to take some cobwebs off it, but it's definitely
Excellent.
pertinent. Okay.
a
Thank you
treasure.
so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so we're a little early. Why don't we move on to the warrants and get those out of the way?
Yeah.
Yay.
Motion to approve the payroll warrant of $75,063.22.
Second.
Great. All those, any discussion? All those, Alex.
Anything out of the ordinary with that payroll? We usually see one that's closer to like 60.
You probably have some overtime from highway.
Snow.
Thank you.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And a vendor warrant of $200,734.55.
Motion to approve the vendor warrant of $200,734.55, and that is something that includes the Franklin County Tech Assessment, our portion of the bill, which is $113,643, and the Sewer Management Plan of $10,510.
Second.
Great, motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the minutes then. What did we think about the minutes? I thought they were,
I didn't find anything.
I always read them the first, as soon as she sends them, so we can get them out of the way.
Yeah,
Yep,
I read them and I didn't see anything.
okay. Motion to approve the minutes then from?
Second.
Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. 6:12. Okay, interim select board meetings, there were none. Meetings and events attended by select board members. Bernie?
None.
Alex?
I went to the firefighter pancake breakfast.
Oh, how was it?
Oh, it was lovely.
Good turnout?
Great turnout, fabulous turnout.
With drawings and everything, right?
Drawings. Skip was in his best apparel. His creases on his shoulders were so tight. It was great. Everyone was on deck there. All the firefighters, volunteer, and the junior firefighters, I believe, too.
Yes.
We're all there to serve sausage, pancakes, and orange juice, and to answer any questions that anybody would have. It was a good community event. It was well planned, established, and they did a fantastic job. It's nice to see a bunch of people I don't get to see sometimes.
Yeah, good feedback on it too. Okay, all I have for meetings is many.
300 first light meetings.
Yeah, I've lost count.
And I've attended some, you didn't, you attended some, I didn't.
So we are in a crunch as far as deadlines. So I have not been to my, apologies, I have not attended FinCom, I have not attended Emergency Services Building Committee meetings like I normally do because we've had so many phone calls and meetings that we've been on for this. It's still ongoing. I had one right before I came to this meeting too. So anyway, that's all I have is first light meetings and phone calls. Too many to enumerate. Let's see, town administrators update.
I really wasn't going to do one tonight in the interest of timing. Most of what I've done has been along all the lines of the projects that we're in. Attended First Light. We finished the sub-bidder qualifications. That was voted. The memo went out today.
Oh, great.
Tomorrow they release the actual general contractor bid. So now that the sub-bidders are qualified, the GCs will start that process.
Great.
So, and then I think the planning board and the ZBA appointments are essentially scheduled.
I saw the agendas were posted.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they're they've had the meetings on site with the Conservation Commission consultant, and so that walkthrough has taken place, and I think they're trying to work very hard to get to their next meeting on the 15th. So those are all the town committees that would be involved. So I've been working on that project, been working on the warrant, sending questions for articles involving the opioid funds, which are very specific, involving the very specific article language for the highway department building. I'm sorry, the emergency services building, because that article for the special is very specific from our bond council.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just sent off today request for the language for the warrant, for the ballot for the question that leads into Dan, which is the elected versus appointed, because you approved it at last town meeting, it now goes on the ballot. So mostly I've been doing legal stuff on projects moving towards town meeting.
Okay, and then I noticed under topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting,
Yes.
we have a letter to Senators Markey and Warren for an earmark for the Shell Bridge. So that
Right,
was
we did submit the RAISE grant, and so we're pursuing every funding opportunity. So
On that note,
Yeah.
so the state originally, I was reading the paper article today, the state originally was gonna do like 25 million, and the state's gonna do an additional 12.5, the earmark for it, or is that the grant?
they have 25 million, that was the project funding. 12.5 came out of another qualified funding source, like lowering emission. There's various federal and state money for incentives to do certain kinds of projects.
Okay.
They pulled 12.5 to get that up to 37.
37.5,
Right. So that we're missing that last gap of could be close to 10 to 12
12.5.
to get. So that's the piece we're going after with all these other grants. The state, we did reach out to them. They are still committed to that 37.5.
Okay,
So we're trying to fill that gap.
Okay, and in the federal one we're applying for, do we have to kick anything in for that, or will that be a full grant probably for it? If we
We're
get it?
applying for that full gap.
Okay. All right, that's it. Just some questions I had on it. I wanted to make sure,
Yep.
because people asked me and I told them what you just told me.
Yeah,
Pretty much,
and we
and I
did
wanted to
meet-
make sure I had it right.
yeah.
We did meet with the U.S. Department of Transportation on the last grant. You can meet and get why you weren't funded. So they give you feedback on the strengths and weaknesses of your application. So we did meet with them,
Yeah.
with the MassDOT team that was
On the
running
prior grant.
Yes.
Right,
on the-
so you
on
did a
the-
debrief
on
on the
the rural
prior
one.
grant, and then you also did a meeting on the new grant.
Right, but we used
Yeah.
that information to strengthen the application for this grant. Plus, the
Yeah.
rural grant comes out again in a few months, and if something doesn't, we'll just keep going, because now we have feedback on the strengths and weaknesses of our grant from last time, where they found, issues. So we'll use that and keep going. So we're just going to keep plugging away at opportunities.
Well,
Good.
thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to make sure I had it right. I'm telling
Yep.
people certain things and I
Yeah.
didn't.
No, I got questions on that too.
Yeah, okay.
And so on the earmark, as long as, if we could just pull that topic out just before we go to Dan, on the letter to Senators Markey and Warren for an earmark for the Shell Bridge, you need an approval on that for us?
There's a letter right there for you.
Yeah,
Yes, you should vote to sign. It's in the red one.
oops, sorry.
You should vote to sign that letter, yes.
But that's not on the agenda.
Right,
That's under the 48
It's under
hours.
40 hours because
Okay.
these things come up sometimes very quickly before we even have.
Suppose we could just approve it.
That's what, here, I'll pass that around just
It's
so we can.
it's very reminiscent of the one you just signed because
It
we
looks a lot
used-
like the Pete Buttigieg one that we
yeah,
just
because
did.
we use much of the same, support, points to point out for support. But there is a timeline on these as well. They're due by a certain time, and there's a special form, electronic form you fill out. So Mallory's been working on that. So she's gathering the updated letters of support to put in with that.
And this one answers the question from the Friends of Shell Bridge about whether or not we were getting congressional support for earmarked funds.
We're going to try.
Yeah. I think they were just curious whether or not we were doing it, and
Yep.
here we are, we're actually doing it. Okay. So if we could do a motion on that and get that out of the way, I just want to make sure we had that explanation before Andrea has to leave. And
I got
that-
it.
Great, thank you.
Motion to endorse and support for congressional funding for a directed spending request for the Shell Bridge reconstruction project.
Second,
Motion and a second. Any discussion, further discussion? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Get that signed.
Okay, we got that out of the way. I promise not to sign it with my Sharpie this time, too.
Oh, that would look nice on their
It's
desk.
not double-sided this time, though, so.
Oh, darn
We didn't
it.
have the
I
same
didn't bring the
problem.
Sharpie. Okay. We'll sign that and get that out of the way.
And Heath
yes, we
comes, we
don't
can.
forget.
Yeah. So we don't have a mad dash at the end.
All right.
Okay. Great, Dan. Do you want to come up? Thank you. I hear footsteps. Thank you so much. Okay,
Hey,
maybe.
perfect timing.
Yay!
Just called him up.
Excellent. Dan, hello.
I'm Dan Campbell, Town Clerk. Amanda Lynch, the Assistant Town Clerk.
Thanks for coming. It's so nice to see you again.
Well, one of the things that I was asked to bring to the table tonight was the appointed as opposed to elected as far as the town clerk was going. And what we did, Amanda and myself, we looked at a lot of the other towns around us. We asked different town clerks what their opinions were as far as doing that. And we compiled probably a good portion of what the arguments for and against for the appointed versus elected as far as doing that. Just to let you know, I was appointed and then elected. So I have gone through both of those transitions. And both of us are currently appointed to the town of Leiden as their backups. So it's not something that is new to us as far as that.
Mm-hmm.
I had really no, I looked at both sides of it, and it really didn't bother me whether it's elected versus appointed. When I first started this job, when I was appointed, I had someone come in, and I basically worked with that person for about 3 weeks. So I had very limited knowledge as to what the job entailed as far as doing that. I have learned over the last 9+ years the job, and it's taken me pretty much nine years to learn a job, and even with that, it changes almost daily sometimes. Give you an example, the election, I have probably close to 1,000 pages. I was getting 100 pages a week on how to run an election. And one of the biggest things that came out of that is everybody now can vote by mail. So the town can opt out of that, and local elections is not. We made a decision, it doesn't affect us that much, we can do it without a problem. So we didn't come to the town and say we're going to opt out of that particular thing.
Can I just pause for 1 second?
Sure.
Do you have a camera issue that you want to fix so that?
I'm working on it right now, sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
I was about to say that.
Good?
I was just the
We
camera.
still have audio, so we can still hear you.
Okay,
I
good.
can
So I'm-
manually turn it if we
do you want us to just manually do a 180 on it?
No, just give me 1 second.
Okay, okay, just checking.
So you're just hearing me, not seeing me. That's probably a good thing.
They're just seeing me.
Oh,
going
that's
like,
okay. That's fine.
So,
That's fine.
yeah.
What we did find out as far as doing that, the majority of the towns around us, Bernardston, Leiden, Montague at this point in time, are all going to an appointed town clerk.
They just approved at their town,
Yeah.
Montague did at their town
Yeah.
meeting.
And as you heard, we went through that, or going through that ourselves when the town meeting last year, the town meeting approved to go to an appointed position as far as doing that. The major reason for that is experience. A lot of town clerks right now are younger, they're trying to get more experience. We've spent almost a year working together and bringing Amanda up to speed, and I want to tell you she's doing a great job with what she's working with us and also working up Leiden. She takes what we learned here, takes it to Leiden, and actually is revamping their whole system up there, which they needed it quite a bit. So this is what happens when you have somebody that has experience. They can go into a situation and go with their feet on the ground, get everything done. Through an election process, one of the things that has come to my attention is the only people that really like to go through the election process are the people that have been there a long time and get reelected. So they don't have that issue of not having the ability to do the job and not having the expertise. Once that person has retired, the town has gone to an appointed position. So the town is seeing that there is a big need to have somebody that knows what they're doing. I would say 90% of our job has to do with the laws of Massachusetts, especially election. We take care of all vital records, which is a very sensitive area. We do all birth, deaths, and marriage. I have one tomorrow that I'm going to help train her. That is a home birth, where the town clerk takes care of all of the information, puts it all together, and creates the birth certificate.
Oh, wow.
That's something that a novice cannot do off the street as far as that goes. So I've changed my mind as far as doing that. I'm looking at an appointed position because people need the knowledge to do this job. It is changing constantly. It used to be you were just a records keeper. You could put them in your vault, someone comes look for it, you can get it. Now you're creating records. You're making sure that when anybody calls in and is looking for a records request, which can be time consuming, you have to make sure that you have everything you can possibly get to that person for records that they need to have. Sometimes we can't provide them because either they're lost or they were never taken, or in some instances we did have, the town hall did burn down at one time. So some of those older records are lost. So we can create them in some instances, but we have to go through certain criteria in order to create records. I had a young, well, not really a young lady, but a lady come in the other day that changed her name. On her birth certificate, it was correct, or what it should have been. And all through her life, they have morphed into different renderings of that name. Well, she just came to us, and we're gonna have to change her marriage certificate and amend the marriage certificate, which is a time-consuming, we have to get all sorts of records from her to bring it in. I can create it, but then I have to make sure we have the proper paperwork to send into the state. So one of the things that someone said one time, who was an elected official, an elected town clerk, said, you know, he liked the fact that it's elected, or he wanted to be elected because he didn't think it's political. To me, anybody that's elected is a political position. So that whole argument has gone down the tubes. The other argument was you don't have total control. Well, I don't think anybody in this room, except the two of us, could run that department correctly as far as that. And that would put the town in political, not political, but it would put it in legal jeopardy in some cases as far as what we can create and what can be done. I am bonded, as is Amanda. I am a notary, and Amanda is working towards that also. So we just, for those things, we bring a lot to the table, we're just doing that. And I'm going to get out of the mode now of the elected versus appointed. And I want the praise of Amanda. She has been doing a fantastic job. It was one of the best things the town could do for the town. She has already saved the town a considerable amount of money. She can physically do the street list, which I used to send out, and used to cost about $1,500. So she's doing that at virtually no cost. She's upgrading the computer system, putting spreadsheets out more so than I was able to do, and I really appreciate that. She has taken what she's learned here and has taken it up to Leiden, and is helping them out considerably to the point where they're very appreciative of what she's doing. I can not be here and not have to worry about something not being done. As an elected official, I could take off anytime I wanted to because I'm an elected official. I never did that because I felt that if I wasn't here, things weren't getting done. I never took a real vacation because I use a Friday and that sort of thing. But now I can feel comfortable if I have to make an appointment elsewhere or do something else, that we have a strong person in the office that can do everything I can do. There's a few things that I'm still teaching her. Like I said, tomorrow we'll be going through the live birth, at-home birth, and once she has that, we do at least once a year. I used to have to do a burial at home where there was no funeral home involved. Oh. That takes a full day to do that. When I got to do that, all the information and everything that I have to get from the hospital and that sort of thing,
all
bring
the
it in.
paperwork.
All the paperwork, all the affidavits, all of the signed paperwork. So, it used to be something you came in, you did it, and you're kind of in the background. Right now, town clerks are right out there. One instance that really bothered me, or actually two instances that really bothered me, an elected town official, an elected town clerk, refused to go through the motions of being able to marriage a couple because they didn't agree with either their religion or what they had, what they do. And because they were an elected official, they could say no. But that put the town in jeopardy of legal issues as far as doing that. The same is true for a town clerk who refuses to certify an election. I have to certify an election. Every election, every local, every state, every federal election, I have to certify the election that all the numbers I'm giving are true, and then it gets certified. There have been town clerks that have not certified elections, and they are elected officials, and they figure they can get away with it because they're elected officials. This is not right as far as that. So that also puts towns in legal jeopardy. Now, that is pretty much all I'm going to say about the elected versus appointed. But my recommendation would be to make this position an elected position. I mean, appointed position, an appointed position as far as doing that. Elected, if you had somebody in town, nobody in town right now could do this job, even if they were a town clerk 3 or 4 years ago, because it has changed so much in the last 3 years that they would be behind the 8 ball as far as doing that. So
Yeah, and from what you're describing, and I know from what you've told me before, when you make mistakes, there's a cost to that. You can't afford to make mistakes like in public records because it affects people and it also affects our adherence to certain laws.
Exactly.
Right. So, and just to reiterate, Dan, for those at home, the town voted at town meeting last year to move the town clerk position from elected to appointed, and then this year, a year later, it goes on the ballot.
That is correct.
In May. So we're actually folks are going to be voting on it from a ballot perspective.
That is correct.
I just want to make sure we put that out there so people are clear that it's a 2-step process. And then does it go through the legislature like other things, or no? Is it a 2-step or a 3-step process?
It's not law, but I think it has to be approved.
To allow everybody to have a chance to chime in on that may not have been at the town meeting.
Yeah.
This certifies or solidifies
The town vote.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have to send it into the state, but it's not a bill.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's not written as a law the way we
Okay,
change
not
select
like some of
board
the
from
other
3 to
things we've
5.
done.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it has to be certified.
Okay, super helpful. And Amanda, how long have you been in the position now?
Almost a year. I've been here since May. Yeah, it went
Really?
pretty fast.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I was thinking it's just a few months, but it's
No,
almost
she's
a
been
year.
and she's caught on very quickly.
Well, you jumped into the deep end of the pool when you guys had to start working so you're helping 2 towns.
Yeah, and Leiden, yeah.
I just want to point that out again.
Well, you got to realize she came in when we had the state elections, so she went through a local election.
Yeah.
She went through election up there. Now, the issue that she had here, she couldn't do the election here because she had to do an election in Leiden.
Right.
And then we have ballot boxes that we use to help us count. They do everything hand count up there.
Oh.
So, and when she got into the and you can speak for
Yeah,
Leiden
so
a little
yeah,
bit
I
more.
appreciate the process here because we have to test the ballots. You know, there's a certain way to mark them in the machine. So I got to scan a lot of them in, and it was pretty quick and easy, and a nice printout. And in Leiden, they hand crank every single ballot through, like on a wooden box, and then we have to hand count them in like groups of 50. So it was time consuming, but I got to see how to do a hand count election. 2 of them, because I started right before the primary, and then I did the state election.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
And
That's
I'm still
amazing.
there because we'll
Yeah.
be having a special town meeting, and I'll probably be there still for town meeting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So her loyalty is to here though, because
Yeah.
basically she is the assistant town clerk here
Yeah.
in Northfield. She has access not only to the town computer but the state computer, so she can register people to vote just like I can. As far as that, any of the mandated state laws, she's on top of them just like I am. The beauty of having an assistant town clerk, we can discuss these laws together and make sure we both understand what's going on. So in the past, I'd have to talk to myself, and that's not a good, healthy thing to do. And there are certain times that I would question what I needed to do, and then I would call the state to make sure it's right. Whereas my plan, hopefully, is in June to send her down for more classes. She's already taking a class on
Building a program from the ground up to have a really good records organization program. It's more for Leiden because it's a mess up there, but I know I'll learn things that'll be interesting here too, because even though our vault's great, I still like to go in there and just see what's in there. It's cool,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm doing that April 1st. But
Great.
like I said, that's more something that I think I'll use
Great.
in Leiden, helping them out.
Excellent. So happy for the update. I'm just aware of the time because we have more appointments, but any questions or comments from the board?
Okay. So
Alex.
here's a question for me.
Or her.
To both of you. So you mentioned the word loyalty. So Northfield has had an issue in the past with turnover with town administrators, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore because we have a nice loyal town administrator. So that's a nice thing to have. So that's really good. So the thing is, when you have appointed positions, sometimes you eventually can get yourself in a position where it's like, is this person just going to hang around for a couple years and then move on? I think there's something to say when it comes to important towns records keeping that you just mentioned, to find somebody who is loyal and invested in a municipality, because it's one thing to know Andrea can be a town administrator anywhere in Massachusetts and probably anywhere else in this country, but she knows Northfield at this point. I'm using her as an example because she's also appointed and answers to a board.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows the town at this point, and she knows the processes that make this town tick, make it function. Okay, so I just don't want to run into a turnover issue with this town clerk position if it goes appointed, to where we're constantly having to get everybody updated to how this town operates and stuff like that. So I only hope, and I am in total favor of going to make this an appointed position. And I would also happen to say that Amanda would be my first choice for such a move when that time comes.
Well, and just to be clear, we actually would go through the hiring process
Correct.
too, right? So
Yes.
just for folks at home, it's not just a plunking somebody in,
Right.
like on some of the committees because you're interested.
Right.
You're actually going through the hiring process and the policy and procedures that have
Exactly.
already been
I think
established.
I think it's my understanding that you can appoint somebody for a term. I think the way Leiden's is written is for their first time that it'll be appointed for a 1-year term, which I haven't always seen that, but they did say that. So if you were appointing someone, you could say for like a 5-year term or some, I don't know how that would work if they left, but that is a possibility.
And is there any way of having, like, town administrators and police chiefs have contracts? Would this eventually be something where a town clerk could craft their own contract and we'd have to have executive sessions over it?
Statutorily, town clerks are not eligible to have contracts.
Interesting. Okay.
If there's statute on who in the town can have a contract.
Okay.
And this time, it's the town clerk position is not one of them.
So I think getting back to your question, though, your question was loyalty to the town as far as doing that. I know it's not really an issue because I live here as far as doing that. But I think, Amanda, you probably want to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as
if it were specifically me that had the position, I would like to live here if I could. But I mean, there aren't really too many houses available.
Yes,
right
there
now,
aren't. That's my problem.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, I'm planning on being around here at least for a while. I actually would like to send my son to Pioneer, so it'd be great if I could live here. I live close enough, and there's no immediate plans for that to change. So I would be
Yeah.
loyal to here. I like Northfield. I mean, I'm still in Leiden, and they don't really have an in-game plan, and it's super part-time. So I'm at least planning on being there. So if I'm there, I want to be here too. I want to stay working with Dan as long as I can. He's a great teacher. We work well together. I've learned a lot from him that I use here and there. So I'm not planning on going anywhere.
That's right. Your education experience comes in handy, doesn't it?
What's that? Teacher's experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He's a teacher. I work with kids too. Like we
Yeah.
work,
Yeah, she actually
we work
does.
pretty well together.
Okay.
Just give you a little bit of, I think the first week she came to
Yeah.
be the assistant town clerk, one of her things she was doing on a Saturday, she was down at Fields Library,
Oh, I do that.
working with the clothing drive down there. So it was kind of like that. The other thing that happened as far as doing that, I couldn't go to a meeting. There was the Western Mass Town Clerks Association. They met down in Northampton. She went down there. She came back as president. So I mean, she's vested in it. She, when she comes in, she loves doing what she's doing. I will leave things around. When I come back in, it's done. And I don't even have to tell her what to do in a lot of cases as far as doing that. First I had to do that, but not anymore. She basically picks it up, gets it done. I come in there. If there's any questions, she'll leave me a note. So as far as one of the best things they did, like I said, was the assistant town clerk. That just made it gives you more coverage in this town than it ever did. So I am very appreciative that happened. And the last one is yes, an appointed town clerk is the future, unfortunately, as far as doing that, because you're not seeing the type of people that can be elected. And you talked a little bit about, you lose every time you have an elected person come in, if that person, has to relearn everything. You have to start from scratch, start learning everything. So you lose a couple, 2 years of what could cause problems for the town.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I've discussed it with other administrators who've gone through this process, and I've seen the process gone through. You talk about the person who's appointed being able to leave. I mean, the most recent examples that most of us have experienced is that's actually the elected person that leaves, and you're scrambling to fill the position. That's really not any indication just because they're elected that they'll stay any longer than an appointed person. The nice thing about the appointed person is, as Dan was just saying, you can fill that with somebody who has some knowledge. Whereas elected, if somebody else were to run, you go back to square one. So you're always trying to keep the ball moving forward. They're keeping the knowledge going. So even if an appointed person leaves, you can hire another person with experience. If another person runs from election, they may have nothing.
Right.
So you go back all the way back to square one where they may learn. So you're constantly paying catch up to some extent if you have a lot of turnover from elected. It can be a lot of back to learning. A lot of institutional knowledge gets lost that way.
That's right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to lose my job to like a very popular town name, somebody who's lived here for a long time and they really like Northfield, but they haven't been doing my position, running elections and everything for these last few years, and they get elected, and then like just because they've lived here for 50 years, that's good. I'm not saying there's anything bad about that, but I wouldn't want to be able to lose my job that I'm really good at and I also love, just for an election, because the town doesn't have control of who's running the town, and like the town clerk is for everyone in the town. It's in the town's best interest to have a town clerk that really knows how to help them.
And that right there is a political culture comment that I am trying very hard on this board to make sure that we move on past that type of network of
right,
good
and I'm
old
not saying there's anything bad about that.
No,
Yeah.
we're just. I think it's a labor pool issue that you're also pointing to, which is if you're elected, the position can only go to somebody in that town. If it's appointed, then you can cast your net more broadly.
Correct.
And you can make easier decisions, and you can also dictate what the hours are, etc. So, and they're also in the personnel system. So there's performance evaluations, etc. So there's a lot of benefit to it. I'm going to pause the discussion on this because we can take up more of the appointed versus elected as we discuss, as we get closer to if there's more questions on it. So I don't want to put the other appointments too far behind.
So if you want to bring me back in the next couple of weeks, I will.
Yeah, I'm just thinking just to make sure people, because a whole year goes by and then people will be like, what are we doing? So, but I did want to give you an opportunity really quick before we move on to the next appointment. The caucus is coming up.
The caucus,
correct?
Yep. The nonpartisan caucus is the 14th at 6:30. I need 25 people to be in attendance. I'm hearing that there is people are looking a lot of response for that. If they don't want to go through the caucus, they can come to my office, pick up nomination papers, fill out 20 signatures. I asked for 22 or so just in case a couple I can't read, so you have to have at least 20 registered voters to fill those out. I know that one person did it within 40 minutes of the deadline. There are deadlines. The 28th is the last day to get me the paperwork for not ballots, but for the nomination papers. And those I will have handy too on the 14th, just in case somebody is not nominated from the floor and still wants to run as far as doing that. If you're nominated at the town caucus, you automatically go on the ballot. If you take out nomination papers and you qualify, you automatically go on the ballot. So those are the two ways of doing it. The other way are write-ins, and there'll be blanks for write-ins as far as doing that. I would love to see the people on the ballot as far as doing that. Write-ins, unless it's okay to do that, but I had, even through the last election, even the state election, we had 20 people, one name. Okay, you can't do that. That's a tie, and they're disqualified as far as doing that. So it's a failure to elect. So I do not want to run to a failure to elect, because that throws a whole curve in it, and then it puts into a different category. The only position that can't be filled by appointing is the select board. All other positions can be appointed, and what happens is if someone says they will retire or leaves that position, their seat is open until the next. You can appoint somebody, but that vacancy is only until the next election. So we did have somebody leave, I think recreation, but their term doesn't end until next year. You appointed for 1 year, that their person will either have to run to fill a 1-year term. So
Right.
those are things that I have to iron out when the ballots come out.
Okay, but let's assume that lots of people want to run for office. So the easiest thing to do, I'm going to focus on the positive here.
Sure.
The glass is half full. Everyone wants to run for office,
Mm-hmm.
including select board. So they would contact you,
Correct.
the town clerk's office, if they have any questions about how
Correct.
to do that and when to do it.
Correct.
But the easiest thing that I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you go to the caucus and you get nominated.
Here's the thing as far as doing
Is
it.
that
If
true?
yes, that is true.
Okay.
If there's two if there's a position open, with the top 2 vote getters will get that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's the
So
top
it's
2
not
vote
a
getters.
done deal if there's tons of people who want to run for the select board and they all go to the caucus next week, then it's the top 2 vote getters who get.
That would
There's 2
from the
seats.
caucus, from the
From the
caucus.
caucus.
14. If the other way to get put on there, and they'd automatically get put on from the caucus,
Yep.
would be nomination papers.
Correct.
So those are the 2 ways of doing it.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
People should show up. Get your public speaking skills fired up. Come
It's
on, show
actually
up to
fun
town.
and it didn't take that long either, so it's,
I have been very fortunate that I've run 9 of them, because I've been here 9 years. This will be my 9th one. That I've always had at least 25 people or more, which is a testament to the people in the town of Northfield that want to get involved in their town.
Yep.
As far
Absolutely.
and
as
they care. Bernie, did you have one?
Yeah, now like the select board, we have 2 seats
Correct.
open. So how many do you get on there? Do you get 3, 4?
2 for each seat.
2 for each seat?
Yes.
Okay, because they're both going
So-
to be 3-year terms.
So here's the name. There'll be 1 name on it. Then 2. Those are the top 2. Okay. Then there'll be 2 for write-ins. So there's always, if there is 3 people, there would be the 3 people plus 3 write-ins. So it depends on the number of people that are qualified to run. But if there is a position that's open, and you have, well, actually there's 2
2 seats.
There's 2, so 2 for 2. So you have
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
people can run for each position.
2 openings.
2 openings for
you
each
get
position.
the top 4 vote getters, where there's
No, you actually do each
2
position.
each position.
You'll say we're
Yeah,
doing this
yeah.
position.
What
put
it would
your
be
name
is,
out.
okay,
Like
selectman
seat
number
1 and
1,
seat
selectman
2.
number 2. Selectman number 1, you have 2 people nominated for that. Selectman number 2 people from the caucus. But you can add more names as people get nomination papers. You could have 10 people. 2 of them came from the caucus, and the other 8 came
All
from
went out and got their
nomination
signature.
papers.
They'll open
Okay.
each seat.
So,
Depending.
so you can, somebody running could pick who they want to run against, almost. Or it's not automatic, you don't just place them.
No,
I'm not
they
sure
open
what
the
you're-
seat, people get
Let's-
nominated for that seat,
Yeah,
they do it,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
they'll do the next seat separately.
All right, so if people have questions, they can call the
Call
town
me.
clerk's
And
office.
we'll explain it to them.
And they can also show up next Tuesday
Next Tuesday at 6:30.
downstairs
in the
in the
auditorium.
auditorium.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to energy.
We're good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
you,
Amanda,
Dan.
nice to see you. Thanks for all your good work. You and Dan. Okay, that was interesting. This is like a civics lesson. Okay. There'll be homework later. There'll be a quiz later. Okay. Yeah, we'll start doing online quizzes. Okay, press 1. Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. It's
I'm
been a
Jim
while.
Vanata, and viewers at home. I'm Jim Vanata,
Nice to see
co-chair
you.
with Judy.
I'm Judy Wagner, also co-chair. We really appreciate a chance to come and give you an update on
Great.
what we've been doing. We realized that we've had our heads down, digging away at certain things, and that we hadn't really checked in with you for a long time. So we're
Well, we
here
know you're always busy and doing good things, so.
trying is the operative
Yeah.
word. So Jim and I want to present 4 key points, and we'll try to do it swiftly and see if there's questions after. We're going to report on the Green Communities Grant, which is the most recent grant that we just finished. We have a solar planning process happening, which we want to share with you. We need to bring up energy aggregation, and that's actually the thing that needs the soonest attention from the select board. And then finally, we have a public event that we want to share with you.
Oh, good.
So, I'll lead off with just a little bit about the Green Communities Grant, and Jim is going to talk about the more technical part of this work. But we completed the latest grant in September of 2022. It was a grant of around $160,000 that was committed to several things. A $5,000 contribution to a police hybrid car, a new mini split for the library to make sure that they didn't have to fire up the furnace for the 17 hours a week when there are only 2 staff in the office. So the mini split went into the office to give them greater options. And then the biggest part of the project was a variety of heating and cooling, heating projects at the elementary school. And I'll just summarize a few of the general points that about the process we went through. But Jim, why don't you explain more about what we actually did?
Okay,
Or
well,
they did. We did.
I'm going to go back several years in time, and just to say that a previous Green Communities Grant was awarded. And this is before my time on the board, on the committee. We did weatherization to the building, being tightened up the envelope with air sealing, tightened up the attic floor so that air and venting up there so air wasn't just escaping, insulated as much as could be done with a brick building. So no in-wall insulation was done, but it was thoroughly done in the attic and below and above ceilings on the second floor. This grant was in the active heating system, and we had 9 classrooms, including then three office rooms. Is that right? 3
Yeah.
rooms were gang together.
Yep.
And it's centered on ventilation. So the existing ventilation within the fan coil heating units that are below the windows there in the classrooms were disabled. They were blocked off, insulated, and heat recovery ventilators were installed. Those being that they'll draw fresh air in from the outside and exhaust, we'll call it stale air, from the classroom. In doing so, the air flows cross-ventilate, but they're not mixed. The warm air that's exiting transfers heat to the cool incoming air, and it modulates that temperature so that less energy is lost just from dumping the stale air outside. So that was done in those rooms, and the grant was awarded just before COVID came on, and it was amazingly important that that's what we were doing. Ended up being amazingly important.
So the timing was perfect
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
Yes.
So we got 2 for 1. We were thinking heat recovery, reducing energy, but actually what we also did was massively improve the ventilation in the school.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then a consequence of that, the controls. The school is an old building, has old control system, being that it's a vacuum system, and that was able to be knocked back. It was able to be disconnected from the classrooms where these ventilators were put in. And that's a benefit because the system is leaking, and there's a large pump in the boiler room that cranks away just to maintain that vacuum. So it reduces electric use and such. And we installed the circulator pumps for the 4 zones of the 3 zones, plus a spare of the school buildings, were installed as variable speed. They'll come up to speed to whatever speed is needed to circulate water as it's needed for the heating of the classrooms, rather than the old pumps came on, ran at 100%, just all out, flat out ran. So it's a tremendous electric savings. There was an outdoor, what's called an outdoor reset, put on the boiler, such that it will, the outdoor sensor determines, or it senses what the temperature is outside and tells the boiler, you don't need to heat the water so hot today. It's a warmish day. So the boiler can throttle back, it can work to the extent that it needs to heat the water to the temperature it needs to sufficiently warm the classrooms. So there again, a savings in this case of oil.
So you guys, and this is, just for clarification, this is on the prior grant?
Oh no, I'm sorry, this is on the current grant.
Oh, this is on the current grant. Okay,
I'm
I just
sorry.
wanted to make sure.
Starting with all the heating and.
You're building
System.
on what you did before.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Trying to stair step.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, distinction was, what we did in the first grant is passive. What we did in
The
this
foundational,
recently,
got to get it done kind of work. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And yeah, this one being working on the active infrastructure.
Gotcha. And adding some level of sophistication, it sounds like, in terms of
Yeah.
when things need to run.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
And then there are a lot of points that we wanted to just quickly share with you about this project because it was a bear. We ran into the
Yeah.
most amazing supply chain problems. When we put this thing out to bid, it came in more than double the estimates that we had gotten from reliable sources. If Andrea had not stepped up and helped us get some federal funds to essentially match that grant, we would not have been able to complete any portion of this that would make a difference at the school. As it was, we had to cut back from 20 classrooms to 9. So we still have half of this to go, really, to do what we want to do at the school. The other thing was the contractor's schedule got so close to the end of the grant period that we were not able to apply for a fall grant. They do it twice a year, so fall and spring. Another important point is that we have been trying to get engineering support, and we went through, Green Communities recommended that we go through some engineers through Eversource.
Mm-hmm.
The first group that we tried to work with took 10 months to tell us that actually they really weren't going to provide any information. We are now working with the second group. We are really hoping that we get some data that will help us develop the next phase of this project. But until we get that kind of information, we don't feel confident that we're ready to move forward. And it's quite frustrating because it looks like we might miss the spring round of the grant also.
Oh shoot, yeah.
However,
I know timing's really important.
It's
yeah.
telling us that actually in the future, we may need to come back here and ask the town for some support on the engineering side of some funding. And so that's to be thought about in the future because we've run into this problem now year after year after year.
Okay.
We've used UMass Energy Extension Service, which has been fantastic, but they never have the time to do the full amount of engineering that's required. So we've always pieced it together, and it's, I think, not to the best interests of the town. And then finally, we really appreciated the support of the district. Gretchen has been just awesome. She's come even on her days off to meet us with contractors or take care of other kinds of business. She's been very thoughtful, and she even consulted us about some new equipment that had nothing to do with our grant. I mean, it was really nice to have her awareness that energy should be one of the things she was considering. And the district is in the process of doing an assessment of all of their facilities. We have not been able to get clarity about just what that's going to cover, and is it going to provide any of the actual detail that we need for our own development of projects. And obviously we don't want to get ahead or crosswise with what they're up to. So we're hoping that we're going to see a dovetailing in the future.
You mean the facilities master plan that was recently
Yes.
it's in the FY24 budget, I think.
Well, they're using ESSER money, so they can start it anytime.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
been
Have they
started or
started?
bid out, but
Oh, okay.
I don't know where it is, and we put in some requests to understand more
Okay.
what's actually being covered, but we haven't yet
Okay.
actually connected up to do that. So did I forget anything? But we just wanted you guys to know a little
No,
bit
this
of the
is good.
background.
We
and
haven't
the
talked to you in
context,
a while,
because-
so I think this is really helpful.
Yeah.
I think we always rely on the Energy Committee because you're off there working all these issues and developing a certain amount of expertise that the entire town relies on. So it's nice to have you come to the forefront every now and then and let everyone know what's going on.
Yeah, we're thinking we're not crossing with the facilities master plan in the technical aspects of what we're doing, that it should likely sync with what we're doing, that the improvements we're making, energy that we're saving, and the methods that we're using.
Yeah. Okay, and so does that cover the green communities portion? And then you had two other topics, including the aggregation one.
Quickly, let us tell you about the solar
Yes.
planning process
Yes,
that's happening.
please.
And Jim's going to do that, and then we'll talk about aggregation, and then just one last little note about the
No, this
public
is
event
good.
coming up.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure I'm following
We'll try to move
everything.
through this. I think it was over the summer, was it, Andrea, that UMass contacted us and said that they're offering to do solar assessments of towns in Franklin County, and they had a limit on, I don't know how many they're able to take on, but we enthusiastically replied, yes, we'd like to jump at this chance to have you assess the opportunities for solar development in Northfield. And I'm not talking about our ideas were not to develop large scale solar to pave every square inch of it, but to assess what the possibilities are. So that's what they've started in. It's a student experience project with the Clean Energy Extension at UMass, and so far they have over the fall semester they viewed the town properties, assessed rooftops, large rooftops and house rooftops, drew up square footage, drew up that square footage that happens to face south, etc. Took a look at forest lands, farmlands, and former agricultural lands, and have those facts and figures laid out, and then have looked at what the town uses, or calculated what the town would use. I don't think they know exactly. They need to get the MEI data, and we'll get that from FERCog to know exactly what say the municipal buildings, town buildings use. But they can calculate roughly what's needed for generating solar within Northfield to equal the amount of electricity that is used by residents and the town buildings and private commercial spaces. They're on the verge of sending out a survey to residents in Northfield. I believe they'll have 600 mail-out surveys. And Dan just mentioned a street list, and he said would be preparing that tomorrow. And the UMass folks will get that and then select from that 600 representative residences. And I'm not sure how that selection is made, but there probably aren't a whole lot more residences in town. I don't know how many houses, but
1,200.
oh, okay.
Oh, okay, so that's about 50% then, sounds like.
Yeah.
They'll also give us the link. We've offered to put it on the
Right,
website, so
so-
other people can take it. It won't be,
Oh, okay.
it's mostly postage cost and mailing to everybody that's restricting it, not
Yeah.
that they don't want everyone to
Oh, okay,
participate.
okay.
That's
So what's the timeline on that? Do you want to come back when you have more information on that, and then we can just really dig into the solar
Yeah.
portion of it? Because I know everyone always has questions about
We just
solar.
wanted to give you a heads up. So
Yeah,
right now
great.
they have a draft report mentioning all the stuff that Jim was listing,
Yeah.
the types of land spaces, rooftop spaces, etc. The demand, what we actually would need to meet current use,
Mhm.
is interesting, but we also wanted to say, what if everybody electrified completely? What if we had all police cars fully electric and we had, and I know there are plenty of issues, so
Yeah.
I can relate to Alex's sigh. But we want to at least see what the projections might be and where that could take us as well.
numbers.
Yeah.
I like numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
and that
numbers
gives
are
you an
coming.
outside number, right?
Yeah.
And then you work backwards
Exactly.
from that. Yeah.
Now, I will say, we have a few concerns about the survey, only because it turns out that they didn't have many questions to ask town residents about individual residential solar. It's fairly familiar. It was the large-scale projects that they're more interested in asking public opinion. And we had a few concerns about the wording and so on. We met with them and with Andrea yesterday. I think they probably won't be able to address too many of our concerns just because this is a big, long project and they're doing this with multiple towns. But we'll just have to see what comes back. I think it will be informative no matter what.
Yeah, and I think we were just careful. We wanted residents to know it's not because we have any
Yeah.
Plans?
aim or plans or agenda. It's
Okay.
more to learn.
We tried to ask them to change the wording so that people understood this is just
This is not an indication
a
of things to
survey.
come.
This is not a
Yeah.
planning process at the moment. This could be extremely useful to the town should it undertake a planning process, but we're not there yet. So we would
Good.
love to come back when we have both the report more complete and some survey data, but we just want you to know this is happening.
That's
in case
awesome.
you should be one of the people getting this survey in the mail and you're like, what is this?
Thank you for letting us know.
All right.
Okay, good deal.
So, then we need to bring up electric aggregation.
I think it's in my email.
This is,
Oh, and UMass may be able to actually help us if we did decide we wanted as a town to develop a solar readiness plan. So that is something to consider for future. So
okay,
that would be pretty interesting.
gotcha.
Okay,
So
Okay,
aggregation.
aggregation,
aggregation.
you're
Everyone's
probably
so
familiar with that being
More like
Yeah.
aggravation.
You don't have to
aggregation.
do anything.
Yeah.
It's been,
Electrical aggregation, and it's a program that is administered by Colonial Power, and it offers the opportunity for residents, electric ratepayers, to join into to a supply of power that's outside of Eversource. And that power is supplied, in this case, in a contract with Dynegy Energy. That contract is coming to an end in January of 2024, less than a year from now. And they're in the process of looking at opportunities and preparing an RFP, a request for proposals, to supply the next block, and I think those blocks are at least 2 years long.
I think they're 3,
2 or 3
I
years
think.
at a fixed rate. So suppliers of electricity will take a look, do the best they can, competitively will be selected as the next supplier.
And just so you know, we do it in conjunction with other towns. So the bigger
Yeah,
the
so
group,
the
essentially,
13
you're hoping the